as people, we are very, very uncomfortable with body. So even when we have to speak, when you ask someone to stand up and speak, they're very unsure as to what to do with their hands. They don't know. Unfortunately, as people, we become very uncomfortable with our bodies, and that is probably why people are are shy. We don't have Indic view is not as anti-corporal as it is, say, Abrahamic traditions are. Yet we have a fear of the body. Unfortunately, that has come into and seeped into our culture too.
Ma'am, you spoke about Bonalu, and Bonalu just happened. What is the history of it? Why is it celebrated? And what are the regions it's celebrated in?
So I'm no expert. Like I said, I'm just researching this area, so I know just a little bit about these different practices. But from what I can tell, the Bonalu by itself is restricted to the region of Telangana, and it is practiced mainly, by people living in this area, and it is in the honor of the Grama Devatas, namely you have Yellamma, you have Mariamma and Mahankali. So there are about five or six goddesses in the honor of whom this particular tradition is practiced. And as far as how old this practice is, I really wouldn't know, but that is the what it is for. And like I said, this act of carrying the going in a procession with a burden, with offerings, etc., is what marks this particular tradition. Of course, the element of Kotaraju exists in some parts. Kotaraju is there, and like I said, this tradition has undergone many changes over the years. So it is practiced with variations in different parts of the region in Telangana. The Kotaraju is particularly important in the Mahankali celebration. And yes, there is a rangam. In some practices, there is a rangam where the female, who is usually a jogini, usually from the transgender community nowadays, usually from the transgender community, they're also called Shiva Sattulu. And they get into a state of trance, and and then they foretell the future of what's going to happen in the state. So this was even practiced in that tradition exists in different with variations in different parts of Telangana. And like I said, it's called Bonalu here. It could have a different name in a different part of the country, but like I said, variations of this exist in different parts of the world too.
There's one question from Harivamsh, Mr. Harivamsh. Ma'am, why men are not so much involved in dance forms since ancient times like women did? Is there any cultural reason?
No, men were also very involved. Like I said, I mean, look at all the traditions where the act of dedication of women was only the female form, like for dedicating a ritualist to a temple. That was usually the girls, because of the nature, the physiology. I'm guessing this is an educated guess, but I think it was mainly to do with the physiology, that the women are much more susceptible to to act as mediums or psychic mediums as opposed to men. So the women achieve that reach just altered state of consciousness more easily than men do. So where that is concerned, where trance rituals are concerned, it is usually the women. But it's not as if men were not. Actually, men were very, very much a part of many dance cultures around the world. I gave the example of how bishops and deacons used to be part of dances. In fact, they would lead the dances, the choral dances. So they were. It's just that over a period of time, because we've become such an androgynous society, and that's again a Western import, that men don't dance became like a very modern thing. And that's changing too now.
One statement from Ms. Tanushri. Why people are so shy in dancing? Why don't they see as a very important for health, physical, mental, spiritual. I have my own wellness center where I use lots of music with Sanskrit slokas, kirtan, and bhakti dance. But I feel much awareness is needed. I'm a music therapist too.
That's a very good question. Why are people? Well, I think it's the innate inhibition that most people have with anything to do with the body. We are, as people, we are very, very uncomfortable with body. So even when we have to speak, when you ask someone to stand up and speak, they're very unsure as to what to do with their hands. They don't know. They don't. The awkwardness is very palpable. So there is a basic, unfortunately, as people, we become very uncomfortable with our bodies. And that is probably why people are shy. The body is considered to be, well, we don't have Indic view is not as anti-corporal as it is, say, Abrahamic traditions are. Yet we have a fear of the body, and unfortunately, that has come into and seeped into our culture too, and that needs to go first. We need to embrace our bodies first, feel confident in our own skin, and then you don't. So this shyness has got to do with this discomfort with the body. That's what I think.
Very interesting perspective. So one question from Ms. Radha: do the women in Bonalu really get possessed and dance, or it's just acting? I'm curious to know.
Again, I have not researched or done any research intensely into Bonalu per se, but I think that if the ritualist is chosen, again, like I said, there are many variations now. A lot of people are doing it as it's become highly commercialized. There's a lot of DJ music used in some places, but if it's done the way it is supposed to have been done, where I think like some temples like Mahankali and all these places, they're very particular. There is an oracle, I believe there's a lady called the Amma. I don't know if she's still there, but I read an article about how this lady was chosen when she was 22. And in fact, she fell ill all by the sudden illness took her, and there were like markings on her body. Now, some people may believe it, some people may not. Those who are scientific may question it. But it was unexplained. Even the doctors couldn't explain why this phenomenon was happening. Ultimately, it was found that she was chosen to play the role of the oracle, and she has continued to do so. And a lot of people, if you go into those regions, you find that these people actually even have weekly, they have sittings where people will go to them for questions, for asking solutions to their problems, and for predictions. So it's not a science, it is something that is beyond the realm of what we think is scientific, right? If you look at everything within that limited framework, then obviously you'll have to push your credibility a little bit. So to answer your question, I think if it's done the right way, then I definitely think that it is not fake. There are people who do go to that state. But if people are doing it for the sake of doing it, because it's, Bonalu, it's fun, if that's the attitude, then well, there may be people. I'm not denying that there are fakesters out there, but just because there are a few fakesters, you can't rubbish an entire tradition.
There's one question from Mr. Shmuel Erushaimi from Israel. So I'll just read out once, and I'll let him also ask the question. What rule of ritual dances in the life of poor and low economic, socio-economic groups of population around the world?
Here's Shmuel. Okay, I want to ask you, what according to you role of ritual dances in the life of poor and low socioeconomic groups of population in Africa, in Asia, and another poor places, traditional places?
Again, what is the role of dance today or ritual dance today in all these parts of the world? I am not in a position to answer or give you an intelligent answer to that. My guess is definitely the ritual has nothing to do with economics. It has nothing to do with how affluent you are. In fact, the more affluent you are, the more away you are from these practices. In fact, my understanding and my limited knowledge, at least in India, you find that the primary participants of these ritual practices are those who are from the slightly more economically, slightly economically challenged classes of people. They are not well-to-do people, yet they participate in these rituals because of the faith is a very it's a term that I don't it's loaded, but it's what they believe in. And because it is their access to something higher, a higher realm than the mundane, than what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So ritual practices have their own importance. Economics has its own place. I don't think the two are connected.
Can I say something here?
Yes, please.
When we were young, we used to go to temples, or, some aunt would put some ritual saying, today we are having this bhajan happening, that bhajan happening. And recently, my sister had put a bhajan in her house. And when we had gone there, we realized while singing along with the lady, all the emotions, the pent-up emotions as women that we have, or the men that we go through, as we're singing, it comes out. Our emotions are freed. There is a lot more, it's like talking to your friend. When you when you sing loudly, when you dance, these rituals help us free up our emotional suppressions. I think that is what my experience was. Shmel, would that answer your question? Okay, there's one question from Mr. Ranjit. How to add dance as part of child education?
How to add? Well, there are like so many opportunities today as opposed to how it used to be in back in the day. I do think that there's a lot of awareness now, and parents do want to encourage their children to start to learn some. I mean, at least when I was growing up, it was mandatory in our family that you learn, if you're girls especially, you learn some art like music and dance. So I think in some communities, in some cultures, it is very much part of their culture, the way they are, and also I think in schools now it's become mandatory in some, like I think CBSE schools and ICSE schools. Some schools, it is mandatory part of their curriculum. But the question is, what kind of dance are we teaching them? I find that in schools today, the emphasis is there are dance teachers, but it's always relegated to the bottom of everything. Like the priority that is given to the arts and dance especially is right at the bottom of the list of priorities. So that is one. Secondly, the generation is being raised on a very, very shallow understanding of dance. That is why I wanted to do this talk, because dance today is what we understand from what we see on television and in popular culture, which is, if you're doing something fantastic, like you're standing on your head or you're doing triple turns, or it's a very Western idea of a very athletic culture, and something that, absolutely stuns us or has to visually gratify us. Only then it is dance. So when we have that kind of a very, very shallow understanding, then that itself is problematic. So what we need is a community that is aware of the different shades of something as potent a medium, an art form or knowledge system as dance. And then we start teaching the young. That's what I think.
May I add something here? Of late, my observations, I was seeing a lot of Bollywood dancing being encouraged, and some of the YouTube videos of IITs and colleges showing dance in one of its most dirtiest forms, and people whistling to it. Somewhere we are aping the West. We are forgetting our culture. When I go to Japan and then they talk about the tea ceremony, it takes years to master the tea ceremony. In India, we did have households who encouraged art, whether it is dance, whether it is music. Whatever we did with bhakti. We did with a lot of faith. We did with a lot of, as if we were doing a puja. and a kind of culture came out of it. Art was a part of our lives. Today, it's no longer a part of our education. We're removing the beauty that India had. Children today are educated, but the education which can come from learning a dance form or a music form or an art form, the senses, what do you say, Trishant? What is your observation on this aspect? What is it that the child can learn from this kind of an education which is missing in our education forms? What is your opinion on that?
I believe somewhere, so dance teaches a lot about history, about expression. Through expression, it teaches us a lot about history, about the deities we follow, about the gods we follow. So automatically it does make you more connected to your faith, the faith that you follow. And I feel they have to be given that connection initially when they're younger. Like when I was a kid, I used to visualize Shiva as my hero, and I still do. And for me, he's the creator of all art, all forms of art. So that connection keeps me interested in all forms of art, whether it be singing, dancing, or sketching. So, yes, ma'am, you'd like to add something to it?
Just adding to what you pointed out, in a very valid point, is it is intimate. It helps a child connect to the culture, to the belief systems, to the stories, especially a culture like our culture, right, which is so diverse. So it can be very bewildering for a young child to know all the stories. How do you tell a child all the stories? The best way is through music and dance, because dance is nothing but a storytelling tradition. In its simplistic form, at a simplistic level, it is a storytelling tradition where you tell stories, and that's how you kind of inform the people, educate them, and as a performer yourself, you're also becoming in a different setting, you become a ritualist, because it gives you that kind of space, right, or state of consciousness. So definitely it is one way of educating the child, is to kind of, like you said, stories from Itihasa, stories from Puranas, and a child who has had some training in dance will be aware of some of these stories, some of these precepts, as somebody who has never learned Indian music or dance.
I'd like to just add one thing I've noticed. So in India, we have this dance. I mean, there's this Taiyam dance from Kerala. There's a ritual called, there's a procession in which Yakshaganas are the performers, and we have Bhutakola near Mangalore, Tulunadu region. And when they're performing, they're vibrating like really at a high frequency, like they're possessed.
Yes.
What I've noticed is there is a lot of similarities when it comes to extremely modern high tempo music. They have similar vibrational frequencies like trance or psychedelic music or anything like that. They have the same vibrational frequencies, and people are actually possessed when they are listening to that music. Like, yes, ma'am.
Fantastic point. But what's the difference? What's the difference? See, the thing is, when you can have that same altered state of consciousness with cocaine also.
Yes.
Right? The point is that the purpose?
No.
That's not the purpose.
Yes.
For us, in our Sanatan Dharma, the idea is whatever you do has to be for a higher purpose or it has to be submitted to the universe or the Brahman, or you could be to your favorite deity, but it has to be, you are only a conduit. It cannot be for your personal happiness or personal pleasure. If it's for momentary personal pleasure, then the value of that state goes down, because you're not channelizing it for something to raise your level of consciousness.
It's every artist would want the art to take the audience to a higher vibrational frequency, and not a substance taking them to the higher vibrational frequency. That is what most musicians or dancers would want their audience, that they go into a trance by just
So there is substance abuse, which is absolutely the lowest level of altered state of consciousness. Then there is current day music and dance, which is like everybody gets into a state of when you're doing in a rock, which is all very well, because it's giving you that high but it's only giving it to you for that moment, but it's doing nothing to your raising your level of consciousness, because you're keeping it there. It's only your pleasure for that point in time. It's very limited in its scope. But when you use the arts to raise the level of consciousness, not just for you, but the people around you, for something which is higher, then you are also raising your level of the kundalini, so to speak, gets, or the chakras get more this thing. So you're raising the level of consciousness, for want of a better word. I mean, it's a more spiritual experience. It's not just for your personal pleasure for that particular point of time. It's a different experience of rasa.